Floyd Landis fought hard in the Pyrenees to take the first yellow jersey of his Tour de France career, but by yesterday it had become too heavy to wear, and he gave it away to Oscar Pereiro.
Hello from Gap, a city with its own place in the annals of Tour de France superstition. If a man wears the yellow jersey here, so the saying goes, then he wears it all the way to Paris. Well, Floyd Landis, the man with the Mennonite upbringing, evidently isn't particularly superstitious. But his decision yesterday to relinquish the race lead and the responsibility that goes with it temporarily, he hopes, has gone down very badly indeed in France. An insane tour was the front page of this morning's L'Équipe, and inside Le Maillot Jaune, the yellow jersey, had become Le Fardeau Jaune, the yellow burden. Now, Chris Boardman, the French are obviously ever so slightly touchy about the yellow jersey. They're a great sporting institution, and they don't like it being disrespected. What do you make of Floyd Landis' move?
Well, I think you can read it either way. I think there's a lot of people going, ooh, that could backfire on you, but he's clearly got a weak team and he needs to look after them, so he thought that was a sacrifice worth making.
Is he going to live to regret it, though? Because it's a very unpredictable race. Oscar Pereiro was 10th in the race last year, so, you know, he thinks he might be able to defend it in the mountains.
Possibly so. I don't think it was going to be a big day to defend it yesterday. I mean, he had to keep it to something inside 25 minutes, so it was doable. However, that would have meant they'd have to work really hard today. Everybody would have been looking at them, and I don't think his team are really up to it. They weren't, you know, I just don't think they're going to be up to it.
All right, well, whichever side of the argument you're on, we are well on the way to having a record number of yellow jerseys in this year's Tour. The record is 8. We are so far up to 7.
And all that has produced this, a leaderboard with Oscar Pereiro a minute 29 ahead of Floyd Landis, Cyril Dessel third, Denis Menchov, Cadel Evans and Carlos Sastre rounding out the top 6. Andreas Klöden is now 7th, 1 place ahead of his teammate Michael Rogers. Jaroslav Popovic is 11th, David Miller 76th and Bradley Wiggins 139th.
Now then, during his 2 days in the race lead, Floyd Landis wasn't exactly the most gregarious yellow jersey we've ever had, but he does have a lot of people around him with interesting things to say on his behalf. One of them is his trainer, Robbie Ventura, and Chris caught up with him to ask him if he was surprised or not to see his man as the race favourite at this stage in the Tour.
Robbie, thanks for joining us. Did you expect Floyd to be in this position?
I did. I think we all did. The team, Floyd, myself. His preparation has been very, very good this year, and we have this phrase, Floyd and I, we really believe that this was a great opportunity for him to do something special. And you know, obviously with the stories of his hip and everything, we wanted to do it this year.
You've got to be the first person to ever try and win a Tour de France with a degenerative hip disorder. Is that really causing him a problem?
I can't say that. I think it causes him a problem more than he lets on. He's had pain throughout this tour as well as in his training. And I think, you know, over the last year and a half, he's been able to manage that pain a lot better. We've been able to learn more about the pain and basically what causes it. And it's these really hard, stiff efforts, these really, really steep parts of these climbs is what causes the most pain in this time trialing, causes him some pain. So we've adjusted his position and done some different things this year to make him a little more comfortable.
It is a very curious time trial position. How did that come about?
Floyd is a complete engineer. The guy is one of the smartest people I've ever met, and he's got a team of people that he works with. And I think the neat thing to understand about Floyd is that he takes all this information, but he ultimately makes all the decisions on his own. And he actually came up with that position on his own because it relieved the pain.
Well, we don't know a great deal about him. He's not Lance Armstrong. In fact, he sort of looks actively uncomfortable around the press. Do you think he's starting to get used to that now?
I think he is, and I think the more time he spends in front of the camera, the more time people actually really get to know him as a person, he'll open up. He's not a guy that just tells it all. You know, wears his heart on his sleeve or his emotions on his sleeve. He's more of a private guy, and he comes from a Mennonite background, which is a fairly private religion. And I think that once the public actually gets to know him, and once he gets a little bit more comfortable with the people that are interviewing him and being in the public eye, they're going to notice that he's a really funny, interesting, really thoughtful guy.
Well, I'm going to put you on the spot now.
Okay.
Days left in the Tour. If there was just one you had to pick, which is the killer stage you think that we've got to watch?
Well, obviously, all 3 Alp stages are going to be rough, and I think the Tour will be one in those 3 Alp stages. I think this final time trial, it may determine, you know, 4th and 5th, but I think the top 3 will be cemented by then. I could be completely wrong, but that's the way I'm looking at it, and that's the way I think Floyd is looking at it as well. I think that second stage up to Trois-Zir, I think, is a really tough mountain stage in the Alps. I think Alpe d'Huez everybody's going to be all excited for, and everybody's going to be keyed up for, and I think it's going to be hard, but I think that next stage, after a big mountain stage is in your legs, like the Alpe d'Huez stage, that next stage is going to hurt some people. And then I think that third mountain stage may be a little bit of a reprieve.
Such a strong time trialist. Do you think he's more likely to follow, or is there a chance we'll see him go on the offensive?
I think you'll see a lot more racing like you saw up the Plat de Borée. I think he's going to follow it, and he's so smart tactically. I mean, Floyd is one of the guys that doesn't need an earpiece, really, because he's actually, he can read the races so well, and he can read the other athletes and how hard they're working. If he sees an opportunity, if the people are in trouble, he's going to take it.
Robbie, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, it's a day in the bunch for Floyd Landis, stage 14, but not an easy one. 180.5 kilometres from Montélimar to Gap, with 2 second category climbs, then a downhill finish reminiscent of 2003, when Joseba Boloki crashed out of the Tour in spectacular style as he chased Alexander Vinokourov down melting roads. Lance Armstrong would have done the same if not for some brilliant bike handling that took him across a farmer's field. Well, there was plenty of early action on stage 14, but it eventually settled into a 6-man breakaway group. Matthias Kessler of T-Mobile, David Cañada of Saunier Duval, Mario Ert of De Vitamin Lotto, Rick Verbrugge of Cofidis, Salvatore Commesso of Lampre, and Pierrick Fedrigo of Bouygues Telecom. Now, Tom Boonen did have his quick-step team chasing at the front for a spell, but then seemed to call them off and signal that he needed a bit of refuelling. So as we join the race, the escapees have a lead of 4 minutes plus, with 41 kilometres left to race, including the final climb.
And look how long that main field is this afternoon. That is a long, angry peloton.
It is. It's a super chase right now, and it's a perfect road to have a big chase on. Never in the same position, always round the blind corner. For the breakaway, of course, it's equally good for them because they are out of sight, but quite clearly no longer out of mind. Although I'm a little bit concerned by that gesture from Tom Boonen. He's called his team off the front. I just can't work out whether Tom Boonen is riding good or bad in this year's Tour de France. It's not evident which way he's going. Only yesterday, Paul, I was saying he would retire in the Alps, and now today he gives me the impression he may not.
Well, you know, that may well have just been a psychological move by Tom Boonen, knowing that everybody else is watching this on TV, because now we've got Team Milram who've come forward as well.
Yeah.
So it's putting the pressure on the front end of the main field, and it's having the right effect on the Gap for the sprinters. It's down to 4 minutes and 8 seconds, and they will feel good about this because it's coming down in the correct margin, the correct amount of speed to pull back those 6 leaders. And I think they need to pull them back actually before we start the final climb of the day.
To actually catch them completely.
Yeah.
Well, that's a tough call, I think, because the Col de la Sentinelle is quite a long climb. It is a second category climb, which means it's steep. Now, if they have to finish it off on the climb, they're going to split this field to pieces because of the weather, because of the way they've been chasing. Boonen, I think, has set a trend here, and now he said to his team, right, off you come. If they want to catch, others must help. And now they've put Luca Paolini's sprinters team on the front to do their share. We might well see this team come off shortly, and then they'll probably say to Robbie McEwen's team, now it's your turn to do some chasing.
Well, they might not want to work too much because Rick Verbrugge's in that leading group, and they will put their pins of a victory onto his shoulders. But they will know that if he can get to that final climb and get away on the climb, he has the time trialing ability to solo to the finish. And that's why Robbie's team will not come to the front unless all of a sudden something happens with Rick Verbrugge, or he radios back to say, guys, I can't carry the flag for the team today.
And the advantage to the riders up front, 6 teams, 6 riders. That's an awful lot of teams not wanting to chase at all. The teams, by the way, T-Mobile, De Vitamin Lotto, Lampre, Bouygues Telecom, Saunier Duval Produire, and Cofidis. They're the riders who've got themselves together to go. La Pomme des Alpes, the apple of the Alps.
The other big advantage for the breakaway group, Phil, is they're now starting to pick up a tailwind, and we can see them pushing speeds up to 60 kilometers an hour.
That's fast.
These guys now on the front, getting themselves organised, two teams, two different teams, and maybe Tom Burnham was feeling a little bit of pressure there, and that's why he asked his team to turn it off. Or is it a psychological game? Inside now of the 4-minute mark with just about 40 kilometers to go. That's on my old favorite recipe of 1 minute for every 10 kilometers of racing. Liquid Gas looking for the big man Luca Paolini to try and get the win here this afternoon. And there's been a crash at the back here. There's a dramatic crash at the back, and that was just going round one of these corners, and I do not know how that happened at all. This is really remarkable. I think this is Kessler.
Well, here we have, this is how it happened, and it's amongst the break, and in fact, oh dear me, Kessler took a very nasty tumble there, and it was in fact David Cañada locked up, seeing the reaction at the front. Well, that is a bad crash, and this looks as though Cañada suspects he's broken his collarbone.
Phil, these roads, we said earlier, are treacherous roads on the road of the Tour de France. They're very slippy in these conditions. A lot of them have been re-gravelled. He wants the doctor to look at that collarbone. Look again, he was going round the corner, and the front wheel just goes. When that happens, you can do nothing, and Kessler had nowhere to go. He was fully locked up. He wasn't going to go down at all. Then all of a sudden, the barrier's in the way, straight over the top, and he went down pretty hard.
Well, Kessler, I'm hoping he's going to get up. Look at the jersey here on David Cañada. Cañada slammed his back brake on because he saw the problem at the front of the rider going in, and he completely locked up and fell. He's taken out Kessler, who has piloted over his bike into the bushes. Everybody is over there with Matthias Kessler. Well, you're going along in a breakaway of 6. Everything is working completely normally, and then this happens.
Well, I'm wondering if there's another rider gone down there as well, because that is the Cofidis team manager there on the right-hand side. So if that team manager of Cofidis is there, Rick Verbrugge could well be down there too.
I think it was Verbrugge who was taking them around the corner, and he was the one that got the wrong line. And it was, let's see again now, it's Verbrugge at the front, you see. Completely wrong line.
Yeah, Verbrugge was the first man to lose it, a fraction there. Let's have a look there, just at the front, and he went right over. Kessler's further back. This is amazing. This is a lot to do with fatigue. It's a lot to do with the road surface. And the man who was just behind there, I don't know how he missed it. The rider in second place was the rider from De Vitamon. That was Mario Ertz, and he only just got round Rick Verbrugge.
Well, he's a Belgian cyclist, and they're known for their expert bike handlers, but Verbrugge also. There's poor old Rick down there now. That's a very nasty crash for Rick Verbrugge, and I think by the look of it he is out of the Tour de France there, because he was the one that lost his line, and then Cañada saw him lose his line, overreacted, and caused the ricochet crash at the back.
Well, the overreaction combined, of course, with the road surface was very slippery indeed, caused the front wheel of Cañada to go away. Then you can't control it. Once the front wheel's gone, you've completely lost it. The man at the back, Kessler, he'd locked up the back wheel, but he was still controlling the bike. He was still in control. If there hadn't been a barrier at the side of the road, he probably wouldn't have come down. But
now, Paul, they've got to get these cars away from here, because the peloton are going to be here in a couple of minutes. They need all of that corner, and they need warning too about that sharp right-hand bend.
They seriously do. I'm sure the police have got this covered. I'm sure the police are going to be 200 or 300 meters before this corner, warning the main field of the danger. But at the speed the main field are coming here, and look, they can't be far away from it.
There's a change at the front now. It's Milram of also come up here now for Eric Zabel. And now we've only got 3 riders racing up front. It's a complete devastation. The lead now is down to 3.5 minutes, 3:36.
Well, the policeman's there slowing them down. Well, let's hope they all got round there safely. The group that was 6 riders now, Phil, is down to 3. Mario Ertz is up in the leading group here. There is Salvatore Camesso. And just looking on the back, I would expect to see Peric Fedrigo as well, the French national champion. There he is in the blue. Well, this will really rattle these 3 riders in this leading group. I'm sure Mario Ertz was asking, where is Rick Verbrugge? Because after all, they are pretty good mates. They've been together.
Well, we're looking down here on a giant apple, because this is the apple growing region, but there is the peloton running below here now and closing in quickly on the 3 leaders.
Well, drama on this year's Stage to Gap long before the final fast run into the finish. At the moment, Cañada is in the ambulance along with Verbrugge. Verbrugge with a suspected broken leg, Cañada with a collarbone injury.
Matthias Kessler is back on his bike and back in the race, but understandably looking the worse for wear. We'll take a break and we'll be back with stage 14 to Gap in a couple of minutes.
Welcome back to our coverage here on ITV4, the Tour de France. Today we're racing to the foot of the Alps here in Gap. This is the commentary box, and here's the answers to some of your emails. We'll begin with Bob from Darwin. He asks, 7 leaders of the race this year, is it a record? Well, I know you mean, Bob, 7 different leaders, and the record for different leaders on the Tour de France has in fact happened on 3 occasions. It stands at 8 in the 20s, in the 50s, and most recently when Stephen Roach won the Tour de France in 1987. We're heading that way, aren't we? Moving on to question 2, Sol in London. Phil, in all your years on the Tour de France, what ranks the finest stage win you've ever seen? Well, both Paul and I have witnessed some great stage victories. One that does stand out, though, is that of Claudio Chiappucci, who won a stage into Sestria, indeed in the Alps, but on the Italian side back in 1992.
Greatest victory in his career, there'll be no doubt about that, as he kisses the crowd and salutes them. He can't even hold his body off the bike for the salute, he's so tired. Almost 8 hours, what a day, and listen to the crowd.
Boy, what a great day that was. Moving on, question number 3. This is one for you, Paul. Sasha from Cockermouth. Yesterday, why did Floyd Landis not want to keep the yellow jersey?
Well, first of all, I have to say I'm not sure I agree with him losing the yellow jersey, because I believe in the respect of the yellow jersey and keeping it for as long as possible.
Yeah.
Might be a little bit old school, but his tactics I can also understand. He's a little bit worried about the last week of the Tour being very difficult. 3 big mountain stages, Alpe d'Huez, La Toussuire and the long road into Morzine. He wants to try and save a little bit of energy for his team. But unfortunately for him, all of the other riders in this race see him as the leader. So he's still going to have the pressure on him and his team going into the last week.
It's going to be a great last week of this year's Tour. There's no doubt about that. Now, if you had a chance to select a team to ride the Tour de France from those taking part and the team managers, who would you select? So we gave Chris Boardman unlimited funds. He's made his team selection with managers. And tomorrow on his podcast, he'll reveal all. And to go and see his podcast, just follow the instructions when you log on to our website. All right, well, it's back to the action as we race towards a hot and sunny Gap. Well, this is a look back to the main field here, now riding 2 minutes 11 seconds only as they're starting the lower slopes of the Col de la Sentinelle. Floyd Landis just on our picture there, dead centre. He's lost a couple of teammates in the last few minutes behind the race. Off to his right in blue is Christophe Moreau. Could be a danger later. I've noticed Cadel Evans right alongside Landis. They're not losing time, they're just playing the waiting game. But the pack is beginning to look a little bit more disjointed, Paul.
But it's also a change in the hierarchy at the front as we see riders disappearing. Peter Vrolik, the sprinter from Gerolsteiner, he's disappearing. The next man to pop is Ronnie Schultz. He's also a fast man. Also going back there was Vincenzi Garcia Acosta. Matthias Kessler, not a surprise.
Not a surprise. Kessler is, I don't know if you notice his helmet there, Paul, but he's still got stones wedged in the helmet. You see that? They're wedged in the ribs of the helmet. And now he's just going off the back. He's got time to ride home. He'll lose time. He's not worried about that. He'll just wait till he gets a massage tonight, and hopefully he'll be okay. The other 2 riders in the crash are out.
Yeah, Comesso having a little dig there, but a little word from Federico. He might have been the rider who looked the weakest there, Phil, but he came alongside Comesso and said, don't try attacking just yet, because we need to stay together if we're going to survive. French national champion, done a lot of work this afternoon for the team. He too for sitting up sort of tactically now, because he knows he won't get eliminated. Also moving backwards as well, that is Christophe Lemervel of Crédit Agricole. These riders now will just hope to survive and get to the finish in their own speed.
A man from Pau, Stéphane Ogier, dropping off as well. This is a very hot and humid day. You see the clouds I was telling you about, they're right over Gap at the moment, and it could well rain before the riders get here. These are the 3 leaders now. Well, it has been all of a sudden. First it was Tom Bonan putting Quick-Step on the front. Then came Leaky Gas, a couple of riders from Milram. And you know, that pace has hurt. Details of the Col de la Sentinelle at 15 kilometers to go as they swing off the highway. It's always bad news when you leave the highway.
Well, this is the start of the climb of the Col de la Sentinelle, 5.2 kilometers in length, 5% the average gradient, but at the top there's 10 kilometers to go to the finish. That's what these guys are aiming for. They're still in with a chance, but it is going to be so very close. This climb is a nasty climb. It's almost 6% in gradient. It kicks up towards the summit, but the pressure in the main field has eliminated a lot of riders. I can't see the green jersey of Robbie McEwen. I'll keep a close eye. It's very difficult to see from this altitude in the helicopter, but in theory it's a pace that should be hard enough to eliminate a number of the sprinters from the front end of this group. Verbrugge now under a little bit of pressure at the back of the group, moving over to the right-hand side of the road. You see his head tilting over to the right-hand side. That's just so he can see round the riders and make sure there's no danger. In fact, it's Federigo, the former French national champion, who is putting the pressure on the front of the group, but Comesso is not scared at all by that. He comes forward now to keep the pressure on. If they've got a minute at the top of the final climb, they could just hold on down to the finish line. But look how long the main field is now starting to get stretched out, and a lot of riders have been eliminated. I did think at the end of the day we would see a group of 50 or 60 riders come together, and that looks as if it's the way it's going to be. Now, this looks like Fabian Wegman on the front. He's riding very hard for his team there. He's got the leader of the Best Young Rider competition on his wheel. That is Marcus Foten. He leads his competition by about 12 minutes from Damiano Cunego. Also very comfortable at the front. You can see the leader of the King of the Mountains classification. That's David de la Fuente of Spain and Saunier Duval. And you can see the difference in the speed between the three leaders who are on the slopes of the climb and the men at the back who are just about to start it. So we'll break now down to 1 minute and 51 seconds. Now there's a move here coming from one of the French riders. It looks like an AG2R rider going on the attack, and coming off the back, one sprinter already eliminated, Thor Hushoff, going backwards. It looked like that might have been Robbie Hunter as well, disappearing. Nicolas Portal of France, he too now is sitting up. The main field, Phil, is on the same climb. This looks like Sylvain Calzati trying to go away again.
It does indeed look like Calzati. Remember, it seems a long time ago since he won a stage of the Tour de France in Lorient.
Well, Tom Boonen was telling the truth, Phil, because he too now has been dropped from the main field.
Well, Tom, we've always thought is an honest man. He indicated he was feeling the pace. He called the boys off the front, but he didn't, unfortunately, reduce the pace because other teams warmed to the occasion, and it's cost Tom Boonen perhaps today. Tom in trouble, and remember, over the top, just over 9.5 kilometers to race. There he is, to race to the finish, and he's riding in company there with Julian Dean.
Another man coming off the back, according to Race Radio. Eric Zabel and dropping back as well. David Miller being eliminated. Stuart O'Grady at the back end of the main field.
Well, not eliminated.
Eliminated from the main field.
Yes, he'll live to fight another day, will David.
And this is Didier Roos now having a go. No, this is Federigo at the front of the group. Comesso, so they've got rid of Mario Ertz.
That is amazing. Federigo looked a pain cyclist in this breakaway. He's got onto the hills. He clearly doesn't like the flats so much. But Comesso has realised this, and he's got onto the back wheel, and it's Mario Ertz who has been the first to crack.
Well, that is a big surprise to me. There is Mario Ertz at the back of the group, and he will, if he's not careful, get picked up by the main field.
Well, his legs are looking like they've blown up on him there. Punctured in both legs, poor old Mario Ertz. He wants to get to the top of this and then see if he can hang on, but that's unlikely now. These two are going clear. Well, and it's good to see the French having a good tour this year.
The French are having their greatest tour for a number of seasons, and it's going to be very difficult, I think, for them to get the victory this afternoon, because Federigo, although he's there's a crash at the back there.
It's a bike change or a fall?
No,
I think it was a fall.
There's been a crash at the back here with a number of riders. This very often happens on the slopes of a climb. That looks like Stuart O'Grady, CSC on the left-hand side there.
Well, he was
wearing
also
the yellow number as the first team in the overall classification. But for Stuart, maybe this is just one climb a little bit too far.
Yeah, it was Stefan Goubert.
There's the crash halfway.
Stefan Goubert has gone down. Touch your wheels, and Agri Turbo rider. They're coming up on Sylvain Calzati. I don't think he's going to get away with this. A lot of pressure, though, and that peloton is beginning to show signs of cracking. I wonder if there's seconds to be gained by the big boys here, because Michael Bogart is also moving up.
Hi, I'm Michael Bogart, and you can see more from the tour after the commercial break.
Welcome back to Gap. Another finish line, another expectant and very patient full house awaits the riders. But before we get back to the racing, just to clear up one very important issue which seems to have been bothering quite a number of you. Good people like Graham and Joy from Chester who've written in asking where the devil is the devil. Well, it's true, the French TV directors seem to have been less than infatuated with him this year. In fact, I went in search of the man in the Pyrenees and drew a blank myself. But rest assured, he is here, along with a good number of other strange folk who seem prepared, as every year, to do almost anything to get noticed by the TV cameras.
It's coming down. 1 minute and 25 seconds now these two leaders have over the front end of the main field, and there's a serious amount of pressure on the front end of the peloton. Michael Bogard moving up into second place. Let's not forget, this is a second category climb. There are double points in the King of the Mountains classification, so watch out for Rasmussen. Chavanel must have been one of those riders who went down with that crash. He was in the breakaway yesterday. He's in the company there of his teammate Bradley Wiggins. Wiggins trying to pace him back up through these groups. But this might be a little bit of a lost cause here, because there's a lot of riders coming off the back of the group. A number of riders from Team Discovery going back there. Padronos was one of them. Just a little bit fat. That was Calzat. Well, he'd been on the attack. Moving through the main field, Bradley Wiggins is trying to get Chavanel back into the race, but it'll be hard.
Well, the rider that toppled on the climb, Paul, was Sylvain Chavanel, the Cofidis man. He fell right into the ditch. And look at this now. Comesso is trying to rid himself of Fedrigo. I've got a feeling Fedrigo is a bit stronger than we thought.
Well, let's not forget, Phil, he was a French national champion a couple of years ago. He's finished well up in races like the Tour de l'Avenir, which is an indication he knows how to go uphill, and he's not scared by the reputation of Salvatore Comesso. But Comesso is a very crafty sprint finisher. Remember when he beat Alexander Vinokourov? Vinokourov so wanted to win onto the roads of Freiburg for T-Mobile at the time, but you know what? He wasn't going anywhere.
Well, there's a bit of a little acceleration there. This is the back of the race. Stefan Goubert, also one of the riders who fell, I think. Looking a little bit tired here now. They are shooting off the peloton here now, one after another. Well, you can get away is one thing, but keeping it going is another here. That rider's legs just suddenly exploded.
Well, that was a rather strange move there. I think the teammates are all getting a little bit excited.
Look how thin the peloton is. It's been completely shattered on this climb. But these two riders are still setting the pace. Their lead now barely a minute. If they can just get over the top, it's going to be a real dramatic chase down. Mario Ertz is still clear, but he can't be far ahead. The peloton must be just behind him. When we get back to the peloton, we will try and see just who, if anybody, is missing that matters today. Here we are. Well, we've still got the top man on the right there for the Netherlands, Michael Bogart. Landis is still here. The Maillot Jaune is still here.
And what about the brave man of the Pyrenees, David de la Fuente? He's right in there as leader of the King of the Mountains classification, Phil. Double points on this climb here because it's the last climb of the day and it's a second category climb. So he will be looking to keep himself in the lead in that competition. But Michael Rasmussen wasn't too far away. He wants to win.
But that explains why that rider from Saunier Duval put in an attack and found he hadn't taken with him the man he wanted to take, which was David de la Fuente. So he had to go back into the pack, trying to lead him out early for the climb. I think it was too early, frankly.
Just a little bit too early. These riders all getting very excited now. There is Sylvain Calzati at the back now, number 34, the man who was the hero when we went on the first day through to the Pyrenees. Rasmussen in the middle. You can see now that Team Discovery taking a serious interest at the front of the race as Chavanel at the arrière de la course, the back of the race, is trying to catch up.
There's quite a race going on at the front of the peloton now, and they're trying to lead out the King of the Mountains for the points. But Michael Rasmussen from Rabobank, the defending champion of the King of the Mountains, is right with him. So those two are going to catapult themselves out when it comes to the sprint.
Well, the race situation now is these two leaders have a minute's advantage over the man who was with them a while back, Mario Ertz, and a minute 22 still over the main field. But you can almost see the difference in the speed. Federigo coming to the front, digging deep. He knows they've got to get over the summit of this climb, and then it's pretty much downhill now. Rasmussen's decided, I'm going, my mate. I'm going to get the points here.
Well, Rasmussen's making himself known. That's a sure point, but he's still gone away in a little group of 4, and he's still got the King of the Mountains this year sitting right behind him. Remember, De La Fuente has an 18-point buffer over Dessel. Rasmussen is still 19 points behind in the King of the Mountains. Double points today, and that's going to mean a lot. Here they come. Last year's King of the Mountains on the front. The current King of the Mountains in his first Tour de France, De La Fuente, taking his slipstream.
Well, I tell you what, there's a rider up towards the front of this group as well who is riding very well. In fact, as Jose Luis Arrieta goes backwards here, it looked to me as if Haimar Zubeldia was riding pretty aggressively at the front end of that group.
Well, Haimar Zubeldia, we haven't seen him all day, but there is a rider. I think this is him now, and this is making his acceleration. There is Mario Ertz. He's back in the pack. There are only 2 riders left in the race right now, and this is Zubeldia setting the pace.
Well, Zubeldia there covered very rapidly by Michael Bogard. Michael Rasmussen not very far behind. A lot of riders. Oh, I can't believe what I'm hearing, that David De La Fuente's gone from the front to the back. He was on Sur Regime. He was in the red zone, Phil, and he's popped. What a shame.
He was taken right up to his limits there by Michael Rasmussen, and he couldn't hold it. He's gone backwards. Just looking back there now, this is the last climb. There's still about 15 minutes possibly to ride to the finish. As we see David De La Fuente, that's a sad sight on a climb. Well, he battled. Tired, he's hanging on in there.
He battled. What a great ride it would have been if he could got himself a few more points. He'll still be the leader of this competition, Phil, going down to the final, going into the Alps, because he's not going to lose his lead this afternoon. He'll just lose a certain portion of it. The 2 leaders still haven't got to the top of that climb. Comesso looks so strong. He's an aggressive animal on a bike. Federigo looks a lot better, a lot more comfortable. But if it comes down to the sprint, it's going to be dodgy trying to get round the Italian.
Well, this is turning out to be a nasty, long climb here. These 2 boys wish it was over right now and see if they've got a chance for the finish. The flag of Italy, the flag of the United States, indicating the drift in the wind. Is the former Italian champion leading. Even the flag of Ireland and England are flying there. What an international race this is. There's the top. Nobody needs to win it from these 2, but Salvatore Comesso looks as though he wants it. But now it's the plunge into Gap, and that is what he wants, victory down there.
It's going to be difficult, though, because the last time check crackling through race radio is 45 seconds only left for these 2 riders, with 10 kilometers to go to the finish. Comesso looks across at the Frenchman. Have you got any power left in the engine room? Well, we better give it in right now, because we are only just going to survive. Maybe we won't now, as this is Michael Rasmussen accelerating to the front. Michael Bogard living him out. Get onto the wheel, mate, but look at the power of Michael Bogard.
There's the team cars of the 2 leaders. In fact, Bogard is trying to pick up Rasmussen. He'll move over if he can get Rasmussen, but he's gone too strong here. He's ripped away from the field, and he's not got Rasmussen on his back wheel at all, so he's finished it off. I reckon Rasmussen told him he didn't have the legs.
He may well didn't. The man up there with him as well is Frank Schleck. This could be the counter move that's going to steal the glory away from the front of this group.
35 seconds, the official time gap right now.
Hola, soy David De La Fuente y estáis viendo aquí el Tour en la ATV.
These are the 2 leaders now. They're hovering still at 20 seconds. That banner, if my maths is correct, should indicate 5 kilometers to go to the finish. And at speeds like this is going to be approximately 6 minutes of racing, because they're riding not far off 60 kilometers an hour down this descent. Comesso swings through, decides he needs to contribute to the success of his breakaway if they are going to hope to survive.
Well, as you look down there now, they're at 5 kilometres. That wasn't even 20 seconds, Paul. That was about 15 now. So they should have these two riders with about 3 kilometres to race.
Well, you know, Team Discovery have got 3 riders in that group behind, and I nearly thought about tipping George Hincapie for the win this afternoon. Hincapie, I never forget the fact, and a lot of people do, that in the early part of his team, in the early part of his career, he was renowned as being a very good mud sprinter. You remember when we saw him get disqualified from a sprint in the Homestead? I thought that was very unfair of the referees at the time. He was only 19 years of age. But when he needs to, Hincapie can turn out a very good turn of speed. And he's got nothing else to race for in this Tour except stage victories.
Well, these two can tick off another kilometre. No time gained in kilometres 4 to 5. Still 20 seconds. Now it looks as though Team Discovery Channel have decided that they have the firepower here now.
Popovic and Acevedo, they've had the word, I think, from George Hincapie. This is Popovic on the front, Acevedo in second place. Look at the face. They want to nail it back. There's Christophe Moreau. Hincapie's in an ideal situation there in about 6th or 7th. You know, there's not many men left in this group. I don't think anybody expected the damage that the Col de Sentinel has actually done.
4th place in line, Cadel Evans of Australia watching. Remember, there are small time bonuses down there on the finish. There is a chance of just snicking a couple of seconds to go into the rest day. Psychologically, that would be a good result for these riders. And just tagging on to the back of the group here is Pietro Cauchioli. Haven't seen much of him, but there you see a counter move coming now from Agri Turble on the far side.
Well, everybody's moving. That one is very much covered by Michael Berger there in the red, white and blue champion of Holland, looking very comfortable, very aggressive. Hincapie responding to that, but let's not forget, they still have to catch these two men. They are still holding on to their advantage, but it is a very slim advantage. It's 15 seconds. That's not very much.
Under 3 kilometres to go. They've lost 5 seconds in 3 kilometres. If they continue to catch at that rate, the whole field will cross the line at exactly the same time. These are the riders. They're now at 3 seconds. That's about 10. That was 15 seconds they're confirming on race radio. Bogart has mastered the attack from the Agri Turbo rider. I think it was Benoit Salmon, but I'm not sure. Well, now they're all back together. 14 seconds.
Well, keep riding, keep riding. He's heard. He probably thinks that now as they get into the outskirts of Gap, the main field are now starting to figure out how to sort out their sprint. They had slowed down a fraction. I can't really call it the main field. It's really a front group of riders, the whole of the main favourites. And they've lost their impetus. This could now smile for the two leaders. All they need is a pause, a slowing down of the tempo in this group for a kilometre. These men will steal the show.
They've just sent an instruction, no motorcycles between the two leading riders in the pack, so we may find our cameraman has got to leave this situation. They want to give the maximum. That's a hard left-hander when you're on full flight, and they're going to have to come round that in the main field behind. And Fedrigo is saying, we're going to make this last, and Salvatore goes with him. It's going to be the tight left-hander. 2 kilometres to go, and they've got round the bend, have they?
They have all got round the bend safely, but it is still locked in at 1:5:15 seconds. Jaroslav Popovic on the front, Discovery. Now they've committed themselves. They want to get these two back. They've got to do it now. They have got to pull them back before the final kilometre if they want their man, Big George Hincapie, to get himself the victory. This man on the front, Jaroslav Popovic, Phil, has had a victory himself so far in the Tour today. He is sacrificing himself from the group. 1:03 seconds now, 13 seconds left.
13 seconds. Popovic is trying now to put George Hincapie into a situation to win this in the sprint. It is going to be a desperate finish because they haven't stitched it up yet. As they're racing now across the city of Gap here, these two riders have a chance. Camesso looks over his shoulder. How much effort should he put in now, or should he just wait? It's a difficult decision. He's going to keep watching.
Seasoned professional. He's playing a very dangerous game of poker here. He's sitting on the wheel of the Frenchman. That is 1,000 metres to go. Camesso has ceased working at the front, but behind he probably doesn't know that there's a very hard chase coming.
An attack
over to the left-hand side of the road. That's a bit of a dummy.
Down. They've slowed down as well. This could be the move they were waiting for. Somebody from CSC may have gone there, but you know, Camesso has moved to the front. Not a good position to win at the moment. They're still playing, but they've got a big chance now.
They've not got more than 10 seconds advantage. If they play around too much, if this becomes that little bit too tactical, Phil, in this part of the game, it will all come back together at 500 metres to go. Have they got enough? There is the group.
Any longer. That looks like Jens Voigt might be coming at them here, but it's certainly one of the CSC riders. And now this is a huge gamble here. Camesso wants to win, and he doesn't know what to do about this because he wants to lead out. It could be the big figure of Frank Schleck, also a desperate effort. He nearly catches him. I think they're going to make this. Which one is going to win? Camesso, it's a grimace or a smile on his face. Pedrigo is running the gauntlet, but he's showing great skill here. But you better watch out because Schleck is on the back wheel. And Schleck has got the bit between his teeth at 200 metres to go. Camesso is going to have to open up. And Pedrigo, has he got the legs to give France a third victory? This will be a huge result for Pierre Pedrigo, the champion of France. He's won the stage, and what a great finish as they come up to the line, and the sprint for third place. Well, on the line, it looks as though it might be Van der Velde was the man, not Schleck. It was Christian Van der Velde who almost got the win and takes third.
Well, Gap lived up to its name. Van der Velde just 3 seconds away from catching the front two. But Pierrick Fedrigo timed it perfectly to pip Salvatore Camesso and take the stage. Another 4 seconds behind those three at the head of a fast-closing chase was Christophe Moreau, Georg Tocznik and Stefano Garzelli behind him. Now, in that chasing bunch were Cadel Evans, Dennis Menchoff and Floyd Landis, but there were serious splits in the field today. David Miller and Bradley Wiggins both finished in Robbie McEwen's group 8 minutes back. The crash victim, Matthias Kessler, struggled in 124th at 12:04. So, Pierrick Fedrigo claims a third stage win for the French, who've also had the yellow jersey. It's turning into a decent tour for the hosts. But having been right next to that crash, Fedrigo knows how fine the line is between the podium and the hospital. And two of his fellow escapees today are on the wrong side of it. David Cañada in the yellow of Sonia Duval is being treated for a fractured collarbone after going over the side of the crash barrier. Rick Verbrugge of Cofidis has a suspected broken left femur. Well, having survived his first day in yellow safely in the bunch, Oscar Pereiro will take the jersey into the rest day and then into the Alps.
Oscar, many congratulations. A second day in the yellow jersey, and you had to work to defend it a little bit. It was difficult out there.
Yes, because today the race is too much fast. All riders, all teams like go in the first group, and it's a little difficult. But with my team, it's incredible. Work too much. Very, very good, and in the final is possible another time the yellow jersey.
And now the Alps. After your rest day, when you think about it, the Alps, what do you want to do there?
Now only thinking tomorrow is the light day, and after is ready. No, I think everybody all days in Alpes to the limit.
You want to hold on for it for one more day? You think it's possible?
I don't know. Tomorrow is the light, and after I think it's in the Alps.
Thanks, Oscar.
Well, despite the drama of the stage, none of it actually affects the top of the standings. Pereiro's lead over Floyd Landis is 1 minute 29, as it was this morning. Cyril Dessel, Dennis Menchoff, Cadel Evans and Carlos Sastre fill the other top 6 places. Christophe Moreau made a late bid for a time bonus that would have taken him past Juan Miguel Mercado, but he missed out. David Miller is up a place to 75th, Bradley Wiggins up 9 to 130th.
Well, plenty to wrap up from today's action, and Chris Boardman, I suppose we should start with the crash. The tar's been melting for a few days now. It's been so hot, and the peloton understandably nervous.
Yeah, I think it looked more like gravel to me on that corner, the way the front wheel just went straight away. In fact, I don't think any of them managed to avoid sliding, but obviously 2 of them came off a lot worse.
Now, the news obviously went back to the peloton, so they were a little bit more cautious, but that last climb of the day, it doesn't bode well for some people for the Alps, does it? Because you had the king of the mountains, David de la Fuente, going off the back. You had Michael Rasmussen unable to follow his lead-out man, Michael Bergert.
It is an interesting climb though. One, it's very close to the finish. It's very short, and it's what big ring climb we call it. It's a power climb, and the true climbers like Rasmussen do tend to struggle a little bit. There's a lot more people in play going for stage wins, and it gets very, very difficult to control. Certainly for Floyd Landis, who was left on his own without a team.
So a dramatic stage, but not one that affected the overall standings. Oscar Pereiro's the man in possession of the yellow jersey going into the Alps. No one seems to believe that he can hold it. What do you think?
Well, he certainly did okay on that climb into the finish today. I think he'll hang on. I think he'll cause some trouble, but I don't think he's actually got the legs, and certainly that's what Floyd Landis is banking on.
What do you think is going to happen in the Alps then? Because in the Pyrenees there was one big day and people could rest. As of Tuesday you've got a huge stage to Alpe d'Huez and an even bigger one the next day to La Toussuire, so no time to recuperate.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting because Floyd Landis on the plus side, he's in a position where he can defend because he can time trial and he's ahead of the main guys, the ones that he really needs to watch. On the downside, we've seen even today he's got no team, so if he finds himself with a breakaway up the road between mountains, who's going to chase it for him? And other people are going to try and take advantage of that.
All right, well, it's going to be a great 3 days in the Alps, starting on Tuesday after the rest day. In the meantime, let's have a look at our competition. We have a winner this week. It's Mr. Graham Smart from Pinner, who correctly told us that the tour city for next year's start is London. Now, no racing tomorrow, but no rest for us. We're back with a rest day recap of all the highlights from the first week. Then we're back on Tuesday with the start of 3 massive days in the Alps. Stage 15 all the way up to Alpe d'Huez. 7 o'clock on ITV4. See you then.